And we are live, I believe. All right, cool. I always have to stare at it a second to make sure it's working. You gotta wait for the catch up over here. Welcome to Vlog Thursday, number 221, Pfsense, TrueNAS updates, business talk, and Errata. You know, I was working on a Pfsense video and I kept goofing it up a bit, but I'll just do it on tomorrow. But I figure I'll at least talk about it today because I did update numerous systems that we have to the latest version of Pfsense and the latest version of FreeNAS/TrueNAS because, you know, the updates happen to come roughly about the same time, which is kind of cool. So I got well, over here. It's weird. I'm looking at a mirror when I look. When you see me looking past it, I'm actually looking at the TV behind me. But I'm wearing my TrueNAS shirt today because I've been playing with TrueNAS again. I have so many projects and trying to catch them up, and it's kind of been a little strange. We had not a lot of bookings in the last few days, which is weird. Like, it's okay. I'm not worried, but it's strange. We have plenty of project work, but we didn't have that many extra bookings, so we had a little bit of free time to start catching up on all the little things that we wanted to catch up on. And so that's kind of one of the things I've been working on. One of my staff is also out of town, so it's okay because when people go on vacation, you know, got to shuffle the workload around. But everything else is going well. And let's see. Let me follow up with the questions we have in here right away. Is one of the things I am going to mention, and because I see them in here, so Mac Telecom Networks. The first, congratulations, your YouTube stats look great. I think I seen you posted them on Twitter or LinkedIn. Anyways, the TP-Link stuff, we've been doing more testing with it, and there's some issues that I'm working on a follow-up video for about how TP-Link and the way they're really not a UniFi replacement. There are some functional problems, so to speak, with the way, and it's nothing they can't overcome. Of course, anything any company can't overcome. It's whether or not they will make those changes. So we're still working out some of the details, but basically it's the way you remote manage them without the cloud controller being on-prem is a lot more challenging with TP-Link than it is. It's possible. It is a multi-site controller, but boy, it does not work anything near as clearly as the UniFi does. So I will be doing some updated videos on that. We've been testing a lot of that internally, just head scratching really of why they didn't implement some of the things in a better way. So someone said, what is a good affordable light duty EV to have a fleet of network techs? Currently using HSR, this is the only light duty work. Heavier installers, Nissan vans, carry ladders. I don't know. I mean, you mean EV, like electric vehicle? There's not a lot on the market that's suited to that yet. I actually hope Rivian and Amazon get together and kind of solve that market niche, but I don't know that if you're referring to electric vehicles, yeah, I'm not sure that there's anything great available right now that I would say is a good fleet vehicle. Anyways, what else do we got in here? Working good, sounds good, awesome. I goofed up the video I wanted to record earlier. I don't know, I got this random, can't make it happen consistently glitch I run into that causes the microphone to stutter. And I don't know it's doing it until I go back to play. And the good news is it was a short video that I recorded that completely was broken because it just starts stuttering, but hey, whatever. Can always re-record that. But back to the topics at hand. The update to Pfsense is interesting and causes people grief because WireGuard's been removed. But one of the things I'm going to pull up in my forums real quick, there is something being worked on. Let me find that post. RDP. Where did it go? I may have to look for, there we go. So we have someone actually working on, and this, I tweeted this earlier, and of course someone right away got to jump on the negative bandwagon. So there's a series of things going on, obviously, and this is specifically coming from the code that is being actively maintained by the WireGuard maintainer. This person put a call out on Reddit, and it was answered, essentially, this is the comment on it. Any devs up for maintaining a fork of what the 2.6 development with WireGuard? They were talking about forking Pfsense. That's a big project, forking Pfsense. That's, I mean, cool. It's noble. I'm not saying it can't be done. That's what OpenSense is a fork of the original Pfsense code. But interestingly, that people who work for Netgate commented, hey, another one possible solution is to make WireGuard a package. Same has already been discussed internally. We're willing to contribute the work, but we're looking for some external to help maintain. And this person started putting together this and just posted on my forums, and I tweeted it out. It's not hard to find. But someone's actually working on a plugin that will work for this. And I think that's kind of a clever way of doing this, is an external plugin that's not built on Go, but still does the kernel tie-in. That would still give you the performance you're looking for in terms of the kernel, but then at the same time, offer the WireGuard that a lot of people are looking for, and they're going to re-implement it with a lot of the same code functionality of how it looks. So a lot of the groundwork's been done. Then you take the code that was cleaned up from Jason Donefield that he's maintaining, which is the WireGuard maintainer, and put this together. I think it's kind of a neat solution, a neat option. So I figured it's worth bringing up. And when I say someone was negative, as soon as I tweeted it, someone's like, oh, this is a whole failed idea, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? Did you even read where they're thinking it's a whole nother code rewrite? And I'm like, no, this person wants to work with the code from Jason Donefield. But hey, whatever, there's always going to be someone who just doesn't like things and wants to be negative no matter what goes on. And I think maybe that's a difference. I see people who are just the complainers a lot. And maybe it's because of being a business owner where you don't grab the popcorn when you see things going wrong. You want to work towards a goal. You don't look at employees infighting. You don't encourage it. You look at it and go, how do we solve this problem? How do we get forward? Because wouldn't it be great for the community to have this project and it go forward? So you work on ways to make it go forward. People sometimes, I definitely agree you should be very cautious and potentially look at things in a very critical way to make sure they're being done right. But that doesn't mean you become negative right away, that you say, oh no, this is just another garbage project, blah, blah, blah. And it's just me. The illusion of my rack leaning is actually, yes, kind of an illusion. It's not leaning, but because of the way the camera's tilted, it gives the illusion because of the depth of field. It does kind of look that way with the soft focus that you get by not having it back there, and the way it's only partially in frame, it's actually tilted. If I move it more the other way, it won't look like it's leaning. So what happened if TrueNAS ZFS replication missed a snapshot because of secondary backup offline? It skips that one. It does it next time, and it synchronizes the next time. It should know the difference. I've actually had that happen, and it seems to be perfectly fine. Mine, I had rebooted a server and didn't unlock the server after I did the update because I did it at night and kind of forgot. And it was a backup destination server, so the backup failed because it couldn't do it, but it worked fine the next day. So it shouldn't be a problem if it skips a day. Well, I mean, shouldn't be a problem is how critical is it that it doesn't skip a day? There's the real question. I mean, it's not a big deal because it picked up the next day, but if that day it skipped is also the day that you have something critical go down or happen, well, now you have a completely different problem. I'm trying to figure out, oh, this device is doing it. I hear devices going ding, 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 ding. I just got to turn them off. Sometimes all my things drive me nuts with all these noises they make. So we can just power this one down. It'll quit making noise. Where's the off button? Clear all. There we go. I had the tablet on. All right. So yeah, that's certainly an issue, but I don't know. It's an issue if you had something critical happen, but it should just pick up where it left off with ZFS. I see Corey Thompson saying that he doesn't see anything significant about WireGuard, and IPsec uses NIST compliant crypto. So here's the thing. It's faster, but Corey Thompson's right, and I agree with him. I see these people clamoring for it. It's faster, but it's not night and day. It's not twice as fast. Even by Netgates, they have, I don't know if they took that blog post down, they had some really detailed speed tests compared to using IPsec versus using WireGuard. It's faster, but it's not like, I think it was like a 10% speed gain. I mean, speed matters, but it's not, it's not so dramatic that you have to do it because you're missing out. I don't know. I agree. It's going to be a while before people fully adopt it in there, and that's another issue. And then NIST compliant crypto, that is something else some people have to deal with. So yes. Hey, we got Christian McDonald, the dev behind the WireGuard package. Thank you for joining us. I mentioned, if you weren't here at the very beginning, I did mention in your post in my forum as well. I see someone saying about the port forwarding problem. I think you posted in the forums too. I don't see the port forward problem. I've updated a few systems. All of them are port forwarding perfectly fine. So I do not know how to solve the port forward problem because I'm unable to reproduce the condition. You may want to try the forums. Actually, someone had posted in Reddit, or maybe it's in my forum. Someone posted they had a solution for what there is a condition that they had a port forward not work. Oh, which tablet is that? This is a Lenovo. I forgot the model. It's the Lenovo Flip 10-inch. It's the Chromebook. Lenovo Duet Chromebook. There we go. Took me a second because I don't think the name is actually on it. Is it somewhere? Yep. Lenovo Duet. I actually do like this. I don't know. Should I review this? It's a pretty cool tablet. I've had it for a little while now. It's a Chromebook though, but it's a Chromebook that runs Android applications. So I definitely like it. I don't know if it needs a review or not. There's a handful of people that reviewed it. It's an inexpensive 10-inch tablet while also being a Chromebook with a keyboard attached to it. If you were to buy a tablet and a keyboard and all the accessories that you have, like, it's got the little, how I got it propped right here, you would pay a lot more than you can buy this whole kit for. It was on sale at Best Buy for I think $249. I was shocked at how inexpensive it is. And it has a IPS display on it. So the picture quality and everything's great. The battery life is amazing on it. And this has become my little Reddit reader. And just typing back replies to emails. So it definitely works really well for that. You should do a video on the port to enable pfSense. I don't understand that. Yeah, I mean, I imagine if you're on something like an Edge ERX switch, WireGuard's probably a lot faster because if it's more, there's probably better optimizations on that than there are on some of the other x86 that already has AES-NI. So. Topic of the day in the TrueNAS world. The updates are what I want to talk about with TrueNAS. So that's definitely I do not have any help for the people with the PIA gateway works. Plus, try and talk people through problems of setting up full tunnel VPNs over a live stream. Best posted in the forums. Matter of fact, it's even better posted probably in the Netgate forums. I have not done anything with pfSense 2.51 and full tunnel VPN, so if you're having trouble with that, I really recommend you head over to the Netgate forums. So you can post in my forums too if you want. I don't know if maybe someone there will help you. I may help. I haven't set it up in version 2.5. The one thing about when I've done videos on the full tunnel VPN, that's pretty much an end user, home user thing. That's not a business thing that we ever see deployed. I did those videos because I know how many home users like it. It's not a business use case, really. It's just something that really doesn't come up for business. Yeah, TrueNAS scale is very unstable still. There is no doubt about that. TrueNAS scale it's alpha last time I checked. So people ask me about it all the time. I did a video on it, but that's one of the things I tell people, like, it's not even beta, it's alpha. So until it actually gets to full release, there's a lot missing from TrueNAS scale. So it's far off my radar. People keep asking for like project updates. I just send them a link to the forum posts. Like, yeah, here's the alpha status of it. Here's a long, long list of things that aren't working and aren't finished in it. I don't know when the release date is. I think their goal is to get it out in 2021. I don't have a date for the release of it. Speaking of TrueNAS, though, because we did update to the latest version, I actually have a few different systems here. So here's my TrueNAS Mini E. That's the small 4-bay one, and I updated that to the latest TrueNAS 12.0 U3. It only came out on April 13th, but I updated systems right away to it. I didn't want to do the video right away. At least I wait 24, 48 hours to do the video, but probably I'll do a video tomorrow just to tell people that I haven't had any problems. Like, everything is working on this. All the jails worked, the update worked. But you're talking about a minor release of going from U 2.1 to U3. You can always roll back because it's not anything major changed. It's also easy to roll back because it's not a ZFS change. When you do an update and then you upgrade the pools to the latest version of ZFS, like when you go from 11 to 12, you can't roll back. This one, because I've already done all the updates to ZFS, this is just a minor bug fix. There's a lot of bug fixing they did in this. There's just a ton of things that were changed, but they're all minor fixes. And the same thing with, this is another TrueNAS Mini 3.0. So if we go to either one of these, we'll go here to Account. Actually, it's under System, View Enclosure. So these ones are cool because you can see the enclosure, see the drives online, things like that. And then I have one more of them. Whoops. We'll log into this one here. This is our self-built one. This is an old i5 4570 chip, platform generic, so it's a, a self-built one. We updated this one though. Once again, it's all running on TrueNAS U3, and this one works perfectly fine. No issues, works great. It's about a 14 terabyte server. It's probably one of the, it's not that big. This one's about the same though. My biggest one's actually on the pools I updated so far. The biggest one's actually the one at home. How many? This is like a 30 terabytes. Yeah, this one's like a 30 terabyte server I have at home. It's got the least amount of RAM in it though. It only has 8 gigs of RAM. So not as much memory in there. Not as much memory for that one there. Any recommendation for LAN to the next room without pulling wires? Not really. Pull wires. Your best bet is to pull wires or use wireless. There's not any good... I mean, you can bridge things with some of those power line adapters. Everyone has told me they're not great. I've never used one. I've heard enough people tell me they're not great to not bother one. But yeah, drill a hole, pull cable. That's, yeah. You can do some, they do sell, like, UniFi sells different devices that can do bridging. You could use a site-to-site UniFi in your house because the signal's probably strong enough to do it, but that seems like a over-complex solution for something that would be best solved by just running a wire. Matter of fact, do I have one within reach? I do. One of the things that I have done, do you see this really thin, how small this Cat 6 cable is? If you get a larger, this type of thin cable, and you can run it, if you have carpet in your house, you can usually tuck this right along the baseboard and hide it. Like if you can't drill any holes because you're in a rented place or whatever. But these, you can get these around the corners of rooms and places that are really obscure. I mean, you have to deal with the end on it because I don't think you can recrimp this type of cable. But still, there are methods by which you can get some really thin cable. And these come in like 25 and 50 foot lengths. I've done it before where the wall adapter is not where you want it, and rather than refish because someone moved their desk around, you just get the thin cable and tuck it around the edge real quick. It becomes pretty obscure when you have it against the baseboard next to the carpet. So it's an easy peasy solution to the problem with if you can't go and drill holes or run new line. So when you need more RAM or CPU for TrueNAS, some quick sizing tips. The more the better. It first has to start with use case. It's the same way when people say, how should I set up my drives? Do you want to optimize for expandability? Then you do everything in mirror pairs. If you want to optimize for maximum storage, because mirror pairs of mirrored drives are great for the easy expandability. It's terrible for storage efficiency because you lose a big part of your storage to the way you set up the mirroring on there. So it comes down to what's your use case. My use case at home. Why does Tom have a, actually let's look this up. If anyone wants to be depressed about processor speed. So this is let's look it up real quick. What's our CPU benchmark? CPU mark of this. This is the C3558 scores a CPU mark of 1596, and that's what actually runs on my. Look, there's only two. It's a dual core system, by the way, 2 threads here. So this is an Intel CPU Atom with 8 gigs of RAM, but about 40 terabytes. It's got 4 10 terabyte drives in here, and the storage pool. Let's go back over to the pool. Yeah, it's about 26 gig of usable encryption. It runs my Plex. It runs Steam SCSI in transmission, you know, for seeding all of my ISOs for Linux. Anyways, but here's 327 gigs of Plex that's in here, and it has no problems not only running Plex. No, I'm not going to be doing Ultra 4K with it. Granted, I get it. It's not powerful enough for that. But for a file server and storage server, it actually works quite well with only 8 gigs of RAM. So you buy as much RAM and CPU as you need for the task at hand. What is the task at hand? There's my tip. First, I can't tell you what to buy or even suggest what to buy without knowing what it's going to be used for. This is just a general challenge a lot of people have when you're dealing with any TrueNAS or FreeNAS. It comes down to use case. You don't need a lot of RAM or a lot of processor if your goal is just to have a lot of storage. How do you manage deep SSL inspection? You don't do it with pfSense. You load different tools on there. If you have to monitor someone's web traffic, we have tools from SolarWinds that allow us to monitor and filter web traffic. That's loaded on the endpoint. You have to put a trust certificate on that endpoint. The other option is, and we've done this before, we set up Untangle because Untangle has deep SSL inspection. It depends if you need it. It's not something that everybody needs, and it definitely, no matter who it is, it always has some level of issue that it causes. What else do we have in here? Can I set TrueNAS old dual core 3 gig of RAM? No, you need at least 8 gigs to run it. So that is, TrueNAS does have a minimum of 8 gigs. So hopefully that makes sense. You touched a bit yesterday at a stream with the dangers, concerns you would consider a video about TrueNAS safety, access your TrueNAS remote for home games. I don't understand the question. You can have your TrueNAS run a jail for, I think Minecraft is one of the popular. I think that's actually one of the plugins built in. Is there one for Minecraft? Let's look real quick. If we go over here to plugins, I think Minecraft is in here. What all do we got? Home Assistant, which is pretty cool. Maybe one time I'll take a look at that. Is the Minecraft thing in here or not? I don't see it, but that doesn't mean you couldn't load it into a jail inside of here. I thought it used to be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a separate project for it. Oh, MineOS. There you go. Set up and manage Minecraft servers. So if you were to run Minecraft servers on your TrueNAS inside of a jail, you have to narrow that scope. Jails restrict a lot of the functionality, so they don't get to go and have a run at all your data. It restricts them to only the data you map inside of there. So I don't know if there's a need really to do a video on there. It's more a video about jails, which I've done some. I'll be doing some new videos about jails with TrueNAS 12.0, but yes, you can definitely run that. As far as a security standpoint, you can stick them inside of a jail, then you limit the scope of that jail. Also, this is where things get a little complicated, but you want to set the jail up either on a separate network altogether, so it ties to a different network interface, because you may not want someone, let's say that particular jail gets compromised, what does their lateral movement look like? If it's on the same network as everything else, well, that means they would be able to jump laterally to other things. If you have it on a separate network, that'll restrict them to that narrower scope of what they can get to. So it's more of just a standard server design than anything particularly special. You don't really buffer writes to FreeNAS. That's a misconception. It doesn't have a write cache. It has a ZIL intention log that is not the same as a write cache. It is part of the intention log of what plans to or intends to be written to the drive. So you don't exactly buffer those. You also don't like the risk that comes with buffering them. You just want really fast drives to be able to take on high-speed writes so they get written to an array of drives to provide resiliency and integrity for your data. That's what's really important. Buffering everything in type of memory can be particularly dangerous because losing writes is losing transactional data that is either important to the operating system or important to the database or whatever thing you have running on there. You do not want that data going away because of a failure or a power loss. You want as much written to the resilient RAID array as possible for data protection. So it doesn't like to stick it all in RAM when you're doing the writes. Now the reads can pull from RAM, from TrueNAS. So we should do a video, and this may be a good topic, setting up your home gaming server and doing it wisely so you're not exposing the rest of your network. That's probably reasonable. Jellyfin versus Plex. I have only used Plex, and I don't use it often. Oddly, I don't watch a lot of TV or a lot of movies. I do it very sparingly, so I haven't had this compelling reason to try something else. I think I tried Emby once, and it looked cool. I may lean on my staff who actually does use it more to figure out which one they like. I've not done enough testing to have any real concise thoughts. Plex is like, it works. It ain't broke. It played the movie. Cool. I didn't have any issues with it. I've gotten confused on the interface, mostly because I don't use it very often. I don't like the SMR drives at all. I mean, if the budget will only allow you to buy them, okay, but they seem to be a terrible idea for RAID. There's a lot of problems with the way that works. If you dig into the mechanics of it, you really get to understand how they're so terrible for RAID. I just don't think they're a great idea. I get what they're trying to do with them. I just don't feel like they're the best solution, especially in a RAID. The overhead seems to be a really a problem with that. Cold storage. Yeah, I'm worried about anything that's singular cold storage as well. Because if you don't turn it on for a long time, will it spin back up? By the way, this is a bunch of platters pulled out of a hard drive. If you don't turn it on for a length of time and it doesn't spin back up, then what? That can be a problem. So then you want to put them on multiple platters. But if they're SMR, that's a real problem. And for those of you not familiar with SMR, the way it works is to get the tracks as narrow as possible to put more data on there. The tracks kind of overlap each other. Now you can do reads while the tracks are so close together, but when you writing the track disturbs the adjacent tracks. So what they have to do is re-pull the data, and as they write the data back for the new track, they have to rewrite the adjacent tracks. The problem with RAID, that's a lot of data going back and forth because it's creating all the different parity it needs across the drives, and that just causes a massive bottleneck in speed, and occasionally it may never actually properly sync all the drives together if there's ever a failure or a resilver. So I think it's dangerous to do it that way. That's my opinion on it. I don't know where your budget is. Obviously the more your budget you have, the more resilience you can have. So it really comes down to, my preference is not to do it. So that's my thought on it. I don't recommend doing it. Well, what else do we have? Good for warm storage. Yeah. We use Backblaze for a lot of the backups too. That's the other place. You can pick like sometimes more than one cloud provider, Backblaze and maybe someone else, and duplicate your stuff in two different cloud providers. you can actually store things relatively cheap in the cloud, but I mean, it does have a recurring cost. It just lacks the upfront cost buying that many hard drives does, but the long-term cost might end up being more. But then again, the price of storage over time always gets to be less and less. Speaking of cold storage, someone did ask me for something. This stuff is so old, I've never digitized it. So I've probably mentioned a couple times before, like I used to be a wedding photographer, and that's actually what some of these are. This is stuff I shot on recorded to different DVDs. These are from forever ago, before there was enough storage for me to put these all somewhere. And now I've kind of debated, like, do I keep them? These are people's weddings. They have copies of them. The studio, though, went out of business. So if anyone ever wanted a copy, I'm not even sure how they would find me. I have all of their DVDs. I had them out the other day, so I had it sitting over here. So I was looking for something. That was a personal thing that I thought might have been left in here, and it turned out it wasn't. Found it somewhere else. But yeah, I actually have, this entire thing is full of DVDs that are all, kept cool. And but this is the only copy of them, and I could probably upload them to Backblaze. It's just one of those things I'm not sure what to do with the data. I hate to lose the data. It's all their weddings. But the other side of it is these weddings are from 13, 14 years ago. And the studio's long gone, and I don't know. I mean, I imagine I could look up on Facebook and find these people and ask them if they ever wanted a digital copy of all of their data. But that seems like a lot of work, and I don't have the people's names because I was contracted through my friend's studio that went out of business, and I don't know if he even kept all those records. So these are hard drive platters for someone who just asked what's in my hand. What else do we have? Tape drives. There's a whole other thing too. So there's another statistic, Corey. You're right. How many of these people are still married? There's a percentage of the weddings that are in here that are no longer still people are married. I don't know. So it's interesting to have all of that, though. Hello from Portugal. Can you run pfSense and KVM? Maybe. I've never tried. It would be a really weird conversation if they're already divorced. Yes, calling people and going, "Hey, I photographed your wedding back in 2007. Would you like a copy of your DVD?" Yeah, I used to do a lot of the tape. Matter of fact, my own backups were on tape forever ago, that from data I used to collect. So it's definitely, I destroyed all those tapes. I've been data conscious for a very, very long time. And so starting back, my digital photography collection starts around 1997 or 98. Whenever the Sony Mavica camera came out with the floppy disk, that was my first digital camera. So that's when my digital life, so to speak, of collecting and actually needing to keep a lot more than just some text files, that's where all of that started, the storage needs. So I've had all this data I've been bringing forward with me to each new medium. Some things kind of got left behind. Anything personal I had, matter of fact, we were talking, I have 172 gigs worth of personal photos that I still maintain. So I've got quite a bit of data that that's just photos too. That's just personal stuff, not even for business. Well, technically some might be, because there's a mix of what I took pictures of for my business, but still there's a decent amount of data. Yeah, backup exec is still a thing, unfortunately. Yeah, I've never tried KVM and pfSense. I've tried pfSense virtualized. A lot of people seem to like it in ESXi. I used it for lab testing in XCP&G. It seems to work fine. Some people do seem to run it in production. It's not my preference, but if you want to, it's possible. And it does work in Hyper-V. To my knowledge, it doesn't have any issue with Hyper-V either. I don't know about the other ones. So KVM, I see some people commenting that it does work. It's not something I've done any testing with at all. Have you ever had pfSense not work with Carp under VMware? I've never tried it with Carp under VMware. Usually when people need Carp functionality that are not using it in a hypervisor. We built out someone's data center rack, a couple of them, and we've always done it with hardware. So even though they had an ESXi system, they wanted all that running on hardware. I did a video on TinyPilot. Question is, can you connect that to a TinyPilot? What do you want to connect that? I don't know what that is. So TinyPilot says pretty neat. It seemed to, and I brought up the other project, by the way. I did the video on the TinyPilot, which is sitting right here. I did this video on it. I like the TinyPilot. I think it's a great tool. And other people commented, they're like, well, what about the Raspberry Pi project? The Pi KVM specifically is what it's called. I'm like, I linked to it. I mentioned it. I just didn't review it. I mentioned it existed. I don't know why people were so angry at that video. I was almost amused at the level of anger, but I'm like, I mentioned the project. I'm reviewing something someone sent me that is a turnkey project. The DIY people, clearly, based on the number of comments in that video, are extremely aware of the Pi KVM project. Matter of fact, the DIY people would never buy something completely assembled. That would not make them DIY people. I presented this because to me it's interesting, and I have a lot of IT people who follow me that go, you know what, I don't got time to tinker with a project. I'd like to buy something complete. I think that's where the TinyPilot is a cool project for turnkey complete. It's ready to go, auto updating, et cetera, the features that it comes with. You look at the Pi KVM project, which obviously does have more features, and I mentioned that in the video, and I mentioned the project in the video, and I said this is more the DIYer person. So if you're a DIY, you're probably going to go there. If you're going, give me a box that works, you go with the TinyPilot. That's all. And people are like really, quite excited about all that. And I think they watched all of Proxmox. PfSense does work well on Proxmox. But yeah, there's a lot of comments on there that just basically were upset that I didn't give enough love to the Pi KVM project. I'm like, it clearly has plenty of love. Someone said you need promiscuous mode enabled, and I bet that's in relation to getting Carp to work. There are, I've not done this. I've just seen people mention it inside of forums. There are certain settings you need to have turned on inside of ESXi to make sure it properly works with pfSense if you want some advanced features to work. Veeam seems to be the hotness now. A lot of people bring up Veeam. I think it's because they have a free option. A lot of home users in that want it. I've not used Veeam, but it seems to be popular and people think they like it a lot. So, could you use TinyPilot to view pfSense? You can use TinyPilot to view pfSense or whatever you want. As long as it has a HDMI or VGA out, TinyPilot can view it. I don't know why you'd want to. It's not something you usually need. Normally you're remotely managing a pfSense, but if you have a pfSense that you have lost access to, that would be a way to get console access back to it. Do I still recommend UniFi switches? Yes, I do. So UniFi security breach, yes, their systems got breached. And then someone said, should we be worried that they stole the source code? I'm like, I'm hoping whoever took the source code makes a better version. I would love it if a awesome, better replacement UniFi controller came out and that it was open source. That would be cool because UniFi has been buggy to say the least with their software. So the fact that a company has a breach is something that happens and people say that's giving them a pass. No, it's what happens in IT, and that's just an unfortunate accepted thing. They mishandled it, which was terrible, and we don't know what precautions they've taken to fix things. I feel they probably did, but I don't know. But when you start looking at the alternatives, you start realizing, and I brought this up beginning of the show here, that TP-Link Omada, far from ready. It just doesn't have all the features, especially the remote management features, unless you plan to put one of their controllers at every site. That's not the way we manage. We manage everything in our controller. TP-Link does not scale well to do that and does not have easy management tools. Also, TP-Link doesn't even offer bug bounty programs. Ubiquiti does. Ubiquiti actually pays out very well for their bug bounty programs. I know several people who have collected money from Ubiquiti. They actively are encouraging people to pen test them, maybe to their own detriment when it comes to their own infrastructure, but at least they are encouraging people to test their infrastructure. all companies have missteps. And before you say, well, let me look at another brand that doesn't have one. Oh, you mean like Cisco that doesn't have a breach, or the fact that our CISA is notifying us again about 40OS and all the goof ups that company has. 40OS has had some egregiously bad code problems, including the Magic Packet one is always the one that just sticks in my head. But look it up. Look at look at the calamity of errors that occurred inside of Fortinet. Oh, and you're probably going, but Tom, Juniper, that's the enterprise company you should be going with. Juniper still hasn't answered the question as to who got in their network in 2016 and why we still don't have a debrief. So talk about people covering up a breach. Hello, Juniper, publicly traded company who hasn't fully disclosed their breach. I hate to sound jaded or sound like I'm giving companies a pass. I'm actually saying I don't know who the good alternative is. I wish there was a crispy, clean company that has a perfect track record and makes amazing, well-supported software that's not full of bugs. Where is that unicorn? I would be recommending them right now at this moment. But I'm more jaded because that company doesn't exist. So I don't really see a way to easily drop a replacement in, but feel free. I mean, I actually don't know that I've seen Aruba in the news for anything bad, but Aruba's remote access dashboard's garbage. Mark, thank you for the donation. Much appreciated. I don't know what RSD stands for, but whatever currency it is. Thank you very much, Marco. Yeah, so TP-Link does seem to need a controller at each site, but TP-Link also has a multi-site option at the top. How you get that working is something I've been trying to even make a video on. It's not clear. Second, it's also it's not clear how to do it, and it's fuzzy because I've emailed TP-Link and they dead aired me. They did not reply to that request for clarification exactly how it works. I kind of reverse engineered and figured it out, but it's not easy. Juniper does run BSD, so we will give them that. So and nonetheless, the sorry, lost my train of thought, but the whole challenge of finding a replacement, not easy. We'll just leave it at that. And because I'm looking back through the comments here and other people asking about it, and then yes, you want to be hands-on with networking, getting started in cybersecurity. Here's the problem I have with a lot of the other companies is so many of them all want to charge you subscriptions for their cloud controller, but that's just, yeah. Yep, Juniper equals vendor lock-in and distribution agreements, much like Cisco. Yes, a lot of these companies are sometimes channel partner only. They don't have easy sales methods. Sometimes a lot of people recommend, for the home lab, this is fine, buying them off eBay because sometimes they have good deals you can get on eBay with a license still attached to them, or maybe some type of model that doesn't require a license. But yeah, they're generally speaking expensive when you get started, and you have to buy them through like a partner program, and their pricing isn't clear, and sometimes even how you configure them isn't clear, which is also unfortunate. Yeah, Cisco does run what is it after iOS 16? I'm trying to remember. I'm not a Cisco guy, but I know there's a point which they start switching to some of the stuff to Linux plus iOS, or iOS based on Linux. I don't know enough about the engineering in Cisco to tell you. OpenWRT, DDRT on compatible ARM devices. I don't use it. Not a project I plan on getting into. So if you want to use it, knock yourself out. I don't have a compelling reason to tell you not to use it. Seems like a good project. I just don't use it. I don't plan on using it. This comes up quite a bit. Can you set up pfSense without network cards? No. What would you do with pfSense without network cards? I mean, I imagine you could load it. I just don't know what it would do if it doesn't have a network card. Sonic is kind of cool. Not Sonic Wall, specifically Sonic. Sonic and Vios for networking gear on the high-end side. There's a limited number of switches, but you can look it up. If it's called Sonic OS, I'm trying to remember. But either way, I believe Serve the Home has done some videos on it. So if you check the Serve the Home website and look for high-end switches that use Sonic, that's something that you can find. It's pretty cool. Meraki. Yeah. Have you ever talked about Cloud Init on Zen Orchestra? I have not, because I don't use Cloud Init. Maybe one day I will. Right now I don't use it, so it's not on my radar to talk about it anytime soon. It exists. It's not something I use. Use pfSense only network card for consumer grade. There is a way to configure, not a great way, but it can be done. I think they refer to it like router on a stick, where you have one network interface and then you split it with VLANs to be able to talk to, you know, a LAN and a WAN. But I mean, you could do that, but I don't know. It seems like network cards and old PCs are relatively inexpensive, so you can build or buy something old, used, find something. It doesn't take a ton of horsepower to run the basics of routing with pfSense. So it isn't like you have to spend a ton of money to get started with it. There's always, you know, cheap network cards, used computers for under $100. So pfSense does not have, see, the requirements for pfSense are low, but if you start running VPNs, that does require CPU. It doesn't still require much memory. pfSense gets away fine with 4 gigs of RAM, but you do need a faster CPU if you do a lot of VPN. VPN is a cryptographic function, and therefore is taxing on the processor to be able to provide the cryptography needed to encrypt your connection. I prefer pfSense on bare metal all the time. Yeah, Unix Surplus has some great deals on their eBay store, on their store directly, but sometimes they put them on sale on eBay for even cheaper. We bought a one from Unix Surplus because the price was unbeatable. I bought it a number of years ago, and unfortunately that server has a processor problem now, but we got it for really cheap, including shipping. So it was like, it served its purpose and did its time well until it started having CPU problems that caused it to randomly reboot. Yes, Corey Thompson pointed out the one NIC with many VLAN split is actually how, like, the SG1100, the SG3100, and the XG7100 all use that split backplane using a special VLAN. So can you use, far as I know with Backblaze, I don't know how it works with Backblaze Personal because I've never tried it. We do back up to Backblaze Business, the B2 servers, but they're not, Backblaze B2 is actually relatively cheap. Backblaze B2 pricing. Yeah, their storage prices are really cheap for B2, so it's, you know, at 0.05 cents per gig a month. I think they have a calculator down here. What's your initial upload? What do you have? I have 174 gigs of data. I'm not going to have hardly anything in that. So for 12 months, you know, I have 174 gig of photos. That would cost me about $10 for 12 months to back up 174 gigs. So it's not, you know, it's not going to be a massive charge. Now, what these are here is you do pay for when you're uploading things. So depending on how much you're accumulating and uploading and how that grows, you get charged for the ingress and egress for getting the data there. But once the data is there, the sitting idle is really cheap for data. Now, I have not priced it out recently, but similar you can use for talking about cold storage. Amazon offers Amazon Glacier. And I believe we can look up the Amazon Glacier pricing. And theirs is supposed to be pretty cheap too. So it's about the same price. So actually Glacier is not even that much cheaper than I'd use Backblaze. I do use Backblaze, but pricing wise, it looked like Backblaze might be a better deal. But yeah, it's cheap to use. You can tie, I'm going to do a video on this very soon because I want to show people how to back up and also how to do the reverse. You can actually use, if you have local storage and maybe you keep everything in the cloud, but you'd like to back it up locally, that can be done as well. Are the state issues fixed in 2.51? If you're talking about the WAN state issue, as in going out the default, non-default WAN, that issue's been fixed. I know there is people who installed pfSense on WatchGuard. I've not done it, but I've seen it. Wasabi is cheaper and faster. Wasabi's permissions were confusing. But Wasabi is another service that's popular. We tested it and didn't like it as much because of the way the permissions for the buckets. It could be me not understanding it, but my understanding is I had to have view access to the other buckets, even if they didn't have permission to go into it. So when you set up multiple accounts to it, you couldn't restrict them to a bucket. They had to have a view level access of the other buckets. Not right, so it couldn't delete things, but I thought that was a little weird. And I just confusion in the way they're implemented. Backblaze to me is easy, but it's also, I won't lie, I've been using Backblaze longer, so I'm probably just more familiar with it. Okay, so you can actually mail in your drives to Backblaze B2. That's cool. How do you mitigate VLAN hopping? Have a switch that doesn't let you VLAN hop. If you trunk a port to a particular, VLAN, it should not be able to hop over to another. VLAN hopping occurs when the restrictions aren't there that allow you just to switch over. Matter of fact, this is something I covered in TP-Link. Even when you would set the VLAN, you could simply go back and set the IP address back to the management range, and it wouldn't care that you trunked the port. Someone told me they fixed it in a later firmware, but this is one of the cheaper TP-Link devices that they had. So, I mean, that's obviously a concern, not something you want. You have, Wasabi with MSP 360. As far as I know, they have full support for Wasabi now. I've not looked in a while, but yeah, if it works, awesome. Use what works for you is what it comes down to. And it's one of those things. If you are not familiar with something and you're less familiar with securing it, it can be dangerous unless you're going to put the time to really learn that product. Just because a product saves you, really a minuscule amount of money, or it's a competing product that even costs very much similar in pricing, is better to go with the one understand how to secure and understand how to use. Because just because, oh look, I saved this tiny 5% off by going to this company, but I don't know if it's backing up properly. I'm unfamiliar with the process. I'm unfamiliar with the restore process. I'm unfamiliar with how to use the tool set they gave me. Now you have a bigger problem of either did you accidentally leave a bucket open, or are you clearly understanding how to secure and restore things. So sometimes there's a value into going things with what you know. And I happen to know Backblaze and have been using it. We've done backups to it for a long time. We've done restores from it because if you back up things long enough, one of them blows up and you have to to restore. Pulling data down has not been a problem with Backblaze. So, but yeah, go with what works for you. If you've got a process and you've tested that process and you know what works, stay with it. If it's not, destroying your wallet or your budget. VLAN hopping worries you. Well, don't have a switch that can VLAN hop. That's probably the first advice. If you have this is one of the reasons you do have to be careful. To my knowledge, I've never been able to or known anyone, because they do offer bug bounties for things like this. If you trunk a port in UniFi to a port, it is trunked to that port. There's not a way for you to gain access to that port to switch it to a different port without being in the management interface. So it's probably something that is overblown, and also something that comes more from people misconfiguring things than it does from actual problems with the switches. So let me explain. What people will do is they'll say, send all the VLANs down this port. And then you go, huh, I got this VLAN, but it turns out if you start sniffing the traffic when you have it set to all the VLAN traffic comes in. And maybe one of those VLANs is supposed to be a management VLAN. And you're like, oh, cool, they didn't strip this out. They're sending all. So I'm just going to hop over to the VLAN where I want the data. And people, I see this, you know, one of those things that people goof up and configure. They're just sending the wrong amount of data to a particular port and allowing too many people to access it. So it's not exactly that it comes from flaws in switches as much as it comes into flaws of configuration where people will just have things set up wrong. Happens a lot. Yes, and like Corey said, some switches having a default configuration to allow multicast that allow you to get over to other sides of the network. Yep. Someone said, is pfSense easy to use? I have a getting started with pfSense. I can't answer if it's easy for you to use, but if you watch my video for getting started with pfSense, I believe I have a 2019 or 2020 edition. Watch that video, and then you decide if it's easy or not. That's a very subjective thing. I don't know where you are in your tech understanding to answer that question. How's my moment server doing? Pretty good. I goofed up the Google Photos takeout. I have to start the process over again. I'm using Google Photos still, and I'll probably continue to use it. I don't mind paying for it for what I use it for, because that only holds all the photos that I don't mind being on Google. But I goofed up the takeout to merge all my photos into one place. But it's on my to-do list to merge it and then bring in all the other photos. And maybe I should do a dump of all the wedding photos and see just how well Moments holds up to some massive number of photos. I haven't tested it in a little while, so. Default is not always secure. Oh, default is not always secure is the story of our industry. Default is frequently not secure. We see this all the time. Not default creds, man. That is still one of the easiest hacks constantly is people who leave default creds. This is just, it's like they're trying, and literally, I think California has done this in some other states, and maybe we'll have a federal mandate. They're trying to force these companies to not ship things with defaults. And I get it. It's trying to put safety tags and everything because, man, a lot of IT professionals that, well, unprofessional IT people, we can't really call them an IT professional if they do this, they leave things at default. And it is so, admin gets you in more places than it ever should. So that's definitely a real issue. Yeah, how many of these DVDs are still readable? 0 of them, because I don't have a DVD player anymore. I have to go get one. So 0 of those are readable at this moment. I'm sure there's a DVD player somewhere kicking around my office, but none of my systems have one. How do you configure a cheap TP-Link with pfSense? I do not have a video on that. Sorry. Here's the problem, because they don't have, and this goes across many switch vendors, there's not a common way to configure VLANs on every switch. There is a protocol that is followed for the way VLANs are implemented in networking, but there is not a UI system that is universal across all brands for the way they tell you to trunk or tag any particular port. So that's the hardest part about doing any videos like that, is how it's done in each particular UI or command line of any switch vendor is unique often to that switch vendor. There's commonalities across vendors, but unfortunately there's not like a universal way to do it. So I don't do as many videos on that. Pi and password Raspberry. Yes. Eduardo, thank you for the thanks, and says loves my videos. I much appreciate it. Oh, you're debating whether or not you want to use a UniFi, Dream Machine, or USG. Can I just tell you, don't? I'm just not that thrilled with the UniFi Dream Machine. Everyone starts using it, starts going, hey, I can't do this, I can't do that, or this broken, that broken. I'm like, yes, this is why we keep telling everyone we don't recommend it. If there's a #1 phone call that we get, it's no, we don't recommend the UniFi Dream Machine. That's unfortunately a pretty popular issue. Even the name used is not a constant. Yeah. UniFi routing, just don't do it. Listen to Corey. Yeah, there's the way some of the companies label it inside their switches can be adding to the confusion of it. Why do you not recommend UniFi Dream Machine? It does not support proper, good multi-user OpenVPN support. It does not support. Well, here's another example. Like when you set up extra subnets on there, by default, the subnets can talk to each other. I think it's in beta. I don't know if this is released yet. I just haven't looked. I haven't plugged it in, so it can't disappoint me again. Good, proper multiple WAN IP is not supported. Just the bugginess of the software itself. The way you handle DHCP reservations in UniFi is bad. Only made worse by if you've seen the way Omada does it, which I think is just the same way. So they're just both bad about how they do it. So it's just like, yeah, you can't have virtual IPs on the Dream Machine. I see someone say that. I'm pretty sure that's still true. Hey, Downriver resident. Welcome. Downriver is the area at which we refer to for those of you that are in Portugal and other areas. If you look at the Detroit area where we're at, where we're south of Detroit and Michigan, there's a river that is 6 miles, roughly 6 miles from here, and we are the downside of that river. So we are referred to as Downriver. Geography. Think about Untangle and some Unleashed APs. Ruckus makes some of the Unleashed ones, I believe. I have not done much testing with them. Ruckus is another one that's confusing because even their own website is not 100%. Last time I looked, at least, their website was kind of a pile of not well put together, easy to find information other than like call a vendor. And I don't like companies that say call it. Why can't you just put a website together that has all the information about what your product does? Wouldn't that be great? Anyways. I think, so in the order of things, you have whatever garbage router that your internet provider gave you. That's the bottom. UDM or USG. That is better probably than whatever junk router that your ISP gave you. It is not substantially better, but it is better. And for example, my daughter at her apartment does have a UniFi Dream Machine. The UniFi Dream Machine provides her internet. That's it. That's all my daughter really cared about, was making sure she had internet at her apartment. Therefore, the UniFi Dream Machine was a great solution for her apartment. She doesn't need any of the advanced features, nor does she care. She says, Dad, I want the internet to work so I can watch Netflix and get online and play my games. So she, for that use case, it works. The moment you go into the more advanced realm of networking, which usually seems to be a lot of people who gravitate towards my channel are at that higher level of networking, they start wanting features and bells and whistles, and that's where UniFi Dream Machine falls apart. So if you just need something to get you on the internet and route traffic, UniFi Dream Machine does seem to do that. It falls short, though, on any other aspect beyond that. Yeah, UniFi does make some reasonably priced equipment. If you plan to do anything advanced, just start with pfSense, because if you go later, you always go, what do I do with this Dream Machine? Because I want to, frequently you'll see forum posts. Well, I was hoping to do this with the Dream Machine, and you go, oh, it's not possible. Well, okay, what do I do with the Dream Machine if I replace with a pfSense? Like, put it on eBay? I'm like, yes, put it on eBay with all the other ones. Right? I see someone mentioning the lack of a proper user with OpenVPN is an immediate problem. Yes, it is. It's one of the frequent things people say it's an issue. How is linking the process of pfSense and UniFi switches and AP? It's not a problem. Here's the thing. All these devices, even if you want to mix in between, let me grab something. Mix and match your network with Cisco and with Ubiquiti and with pfSense. All these different devices, this is a Catalyst 1000 that I reviewed, all these different devices do follow standards as far as how the network traffic. There are a series of standards of how network traffic does. What you do not get when you have to configure a Cisco switch and a UniFi access point and a pfSense is a single pane of glass, as they put it, a single interface that unifies them all together. That is what UniFi does do when you do things top to bottom. But honestly, unifying the switches and access points together with a different firewall, I don't see as a big deal. But you can mix and match all kinds of different hardware. My hardware at home is all mixed and matched all the time because I'm testing things, but it's not really, it's the interoperability is there. And also, how many times do you plan on changing it? Once you build it out, do you create a new VLAN every week? I've asked people this before because they want the single pane of glass, and I get it. It's convenient. Trust me, I know. I'm in IT and MSP. We manage technology for companies. I love single dashboards that manage many things because it's easier. But for especially the home user standpoint, how often do you spend reconfiguring your network? Now, if you're a home lab tinkering person, of course, the answer is like, what do you mean? I do it at least 3 times a day. I build a new network. But if you're a lot of people just generally building a home use case, you may not do it as often. So you kind of weigh out the options of what's the best deal, what is the best pieces of hardware I can use that are reliable, that'll last a long time. I only need these 3 networks built, and once I configure them, they just stay configured. And that may be perfectly fine for your use case and maybe a better use case for you. Everything comes down to use case. I say that a lot, but it's very true. UniFi wireless, Cisco switching, and pfSense routing. Yeah, Cisco's warranties and reliability rate on their switches is solid. I mean, I won't lie, especially once you've overcome some of the learning curve that comes with Cisco, it's a little bit harder to learn out of the box. Cisco makes a solid, reliable device. For all the shortcomings, and I complain about and joke about with Cisco, when it comes to their switching equipment, it's kind of what they're known for. They make reliable switches. Do I think Protect Tele is a good choice for pfSense? Sure, I've used Protect Tele in the past. They seem to be pretty reliable. We've seen, I have at least one person who thinks otherwise because they've had 2 of them die. One was hit by lightning, one hit by a mystery. But of all the ones we've seen out in the field, I don't see many people complaining about them. And we have other ones that we've got here that still work perfectly fine. So we got them. If you look at the tweet I had, I don't know, a few days ago, we were updating all the pfSenses, and I even updated one of the Protect Teles that we had here. We have 2 of them, I think. Yeah, 2 in our lab, and they both updated. Well, at least one's updated. I don't know if the other one's updated yet, but they work on pfSense 2.5. 2.51, the one is the version out now. You definitely learn more with pfSense. We'll go with that for sure. The nice thing if you go with the Netgate product is, one, you can get pfSense Plus now, which may have some benefits in the future. Right now, it's really not much benefit to getting it. It's pretty much the same software. But also, if you go with a pfSense one, you know you have compatibility. So there's that. You also have the option with the pfSense models for example, for a lot of home users, we recommend the SG3100. It's an ARM device. It's very low wattage. It's silent because it is, passively cooled, and it's a pretty solid device. It works quite well. We really haven't had issues. Oddly, though, when pfSense 2.5 came out, there were some initial issues, very specifically with the SG3100, but they were overcome relatively quickly. I think they had a patch out within 2 weeks for it, so that's life. Let's see. A few other people mentioning they did Protect Teles. Yeah, there's Protect Tele, and Protect Tele is an import company, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on this. Like they import them, kind of vet them, but they're very similar to some of the other off-brand ones I've seen that you find on Alibaba. I think they just kind of import them. So yeah, maybe don't hit your Protect Tele with lightning, as Eric says. Terrible idea. Don't hit it. Don't hit it with lightning. It's a terrible idea. Protect Lee. I don't know. I'm going to say it how I want to say it. I know people will keep correcting me. It's Protect Lee. Protect Telly. Protect Ellie. I don't know. I say it's not an easy word to say. I don't even know if that's a word that someone made up or it actually has a meaning. Suggest a 12-port Cisco. Now, cheap and Cisco do not necessarily go in the same sentence, but I did review their Catalyst 1000 line, and that's what this is right here. They make a 12. This is technically there's 12 ports, but 2 of them are shared, so you only have a 10-port device here. But there's a 12. If you look in the Catalyst 1000 line, you can find these for relatively reasonable prices. How can you blame a Protect Tele with a lightning strike? We think it was lightning. We don't have proof. We think that it was because it seemed to have some burnt out electronics on it, and so did more than one thing had it. So I think the conclusion was lightning had hit the building. But it's not like there was a giant mark everywhere, but there was a lightning storm previously that led to, hey, this isn't working anymore. Yeah, the Quotom, QOTOM, are very similar to Protectelli. You can find those cheap on Alibaba, I believe, still. It's been a long time since I looked. Someone says, cablesandkits.com has cheap Cisco gear. Corey Thompson says that, so very cool. Yeah, you can hunt around on places and find all kinds of deals on some of the used gear that still has warranty left on it. So, that's definitely, if you're looking for Cisco or if you're getting into Cisco because you want to learn some of that, absolutely. Yeah, mixing many different brands in a home network is problematic. I would say it's a learning experience. It is a fun one. We've had troubleshoot people who have mixed all kinds of stuff in their network, and that's always entertaining. It's almost like when we get those type of consulting calls, it's almost a bunch of things were overlooked. Like, oh yeah, you didn't send the VLAN over to this one, or you didn't define it in between on the different branded switch you have in the middle. You have a switch here, and I've seen people do this. They have a UniFi switch, and then they have another switch in the middle, and some switches by default won't pass VLAN traffic unless the VLANs have been defined on a switch. Even though you're not trunking a port or defining any rules around those VLANs on that particular switch, some switches either have to have a switch turned on in them, a feature turned on to allow the VLAN traffic to come across, or they will need those VLANs implicitly defined in their tables in order to get the VLAN traffic from one switch to the next switch with them being in between. Rum DR19, thanks for all the great content and UniFi videos. Enjoy a nice brew, an American. Okay, enjoy a nice brew. Thank you very much. That's a $15 donation. It is greatly appreciated. I will enjoy a nice brew this evening. Matter of fact, I have to wrap this up very shortly because me and the wife, she asked what time I'm going to be home. I'm going to say 6. So there, I've told her 6 o'clock. That means I have to leave here very soon. Let's see. I was complaining about issues with Cisco. Yeah, nothing's perfect. We live in the world of software-defined things that aren't always defined well. Let's see. Some client... Nope, we haven't done anything with Starlink. We haven't seen anyone with it. I mean, I've seen people with it, but not any consulting jobs related to it. So I think Starlink is a game changer for the very rural internet community. It's not really an issue in our area because we have so much high-speed internet locally available to us where we are in the greater Detroit area. But I think it's a great solution for people who happen to live in lesser served areas for internet. So I think Starlink's really cool. I just don't really have a need for it. And Chris is clearly doing lots of Starlink videos. I have no value I can add to it. Chris has been thoroughly testing the Starlink. So yes. Do we ever see companies running firewalls or servers on janky old hardware? All the time. All the time. Constantly. Hell, why not even add storage servers and TrueNAS servers on a bunch of random old hardware? Yes. So yes, we definitely see lots of old garbage hardware running things that are way more critical running on it too, by the way, that aren't backed up properly. We're going to get some UniFi 6 stuff in soon to do some testing. I did buy boxes wandered off the table. I did buy an Asus Wi-Fi 6 adapter so I could do some Wi-Fi 6 testing. So that is on my to-do list. We have the stuff we want's on back order is the problem. So OS2 Warp is awesome. Yes, OS2 Warp is awesome. You are not wrong. So we go OS2. I'm trying to find a picture. If not, I can maybe get one of my staff to take one. Can I find this photo? That's the real question. Probably not. I have a picture somewhere I did of one of my vendors is running. Oh, we have a client running OS2 Warp. So I was going to try and find that photo. I don't remember where it is now. But they run it for their CNC machines, which is crazy but it works. So they're like, ain't broke, don't fix it. We have at least one client that has a Windows 95 system that runs a laser cutter. I believe that's all still in place. The Omada update is coming soon. I've been working on the details of that video, but yeah, I'm going to work on an updated video for it because there are things that it just doesn't seem to do. Matter of fact, Miles today, you met Miles, some of you may have last week on a 3D printer. He's been doing all the speed tests with the Omada gear and digging into a few details for me on it. So yes, video coming soon on that. So the Omada updates are coming. There are still some CN machines that use OS2 Warp. Yes. There is a large manufacturing client of ours still using OS2 Warp to run those machines. They're not online or anything. So, I mean, I have the Omada video already released. The updated video is just going to be about the remote management issues with it. So that's mostly, I want to cover like a few feature problems I found with it. One, it uses really old version of SSH. Also, the SSH is useless. So once you deprecate SSH so you can log into it, you also realize there's not a reason to log into the device. So the video I'm going to do on it's not anything more than covering those features. And I will be talking about the speed, which is good. The speed's good on it. So if you don't want to wait for the video, but the remote management is bad on it. If you don't want to put a cloud controller at each site, even though it supports multi-site, it doesn't do it well. That's one of the things I want to cover because people ask me about a UniFi replacement for like what I do, as in manage a bunch of clients' UniFis. Yeah, that's not good. That's not something. It's not a drop-in replacement by any means. I've seen people commenting, "Oh, I've been replacing all my client stuff with this." Really? How are you managing all of it? Because it's not good. It doesn't have the whole. It has a weird way of doing set and form. It's way clunkier than UniFi. It doesn't set URLs. You have to go in and set the URLs in there. And I'm unclear about how you adopt the switches and manage them remotely. So UniFi's got such an easier system for doing that. So I'm going to do that comparison. And that's where from a remote management, multi-management, from a end user, for a home user, I'd probably say TP-Link for home users and home lab going, I want what's the cheapest stuff I can buy that still works, so very similar to UniFi? TP-Link. But the fact that they have Telnet enabled on their switches is concerning. But someone will point out that Cisco has Telnet enabled. You can disable it, but yeah. But at least I trust Cisco to have an updated system on there. I'm fuzzy on TP-Link whether or not they do. What routers do we install for clients? We install Pfsense and Untangle. Make a video about the TP-Link indoor range. It's hard to get indoor range tests on there. And by the way, the EAP225 indoor happens to be a 100 meg one. I don't think it's a good viable speed one, but yeah. I am going to be moving over my home network for a longer term test with TP-Link so I can actually put some use to it and see how it works. I'll be swapping out the UniFi access points at my house for TP-Link and see how good they work, see how good they hold up. So that'll be up and coming. How do you manage all the... Untangle has a dashboard for managing them. Pfsense, you just log into them and manage them. So... MikroTik is okay. MikroTik switches, once you take the time to learn them, they're okay. They're definitely cheap. Honestly, I think MikroTik is probably better than TP-Link, but the learning curve can be a bit much for some people learning them. So there's a ceiling mount EAP that is gigabit. Oh, okay. I was thinking you meant the in-wall EAP. Their model numbers are not, they're a little bit confusing as well. And matter of fact, I pointed it out, and TP-Link has been updating their router models because the router model numbers were also confusing. And what they say is compatible doesn't seem to exist, but it was what they shipped with me and it worked. So they've been updating their website. Okay, I like 10 gig, and it's not that much more. So I do have a switch I'm going to be reviewing soon, which is the TP-Link 2.5 gig. When they ship me the Omada stuff, they ship me this switch here. Try and focus. There we go. But the problem with this switch is it's not managed by Omada. So this is also a confusing point of TP-Link. It's not like so at least with UniFi, UniFi says UniFi on a lot of the UniFi stuff that works with the UniFi controller. They didn't stick an Omada sticker on each one of these. I think that would be kind of helpful. And I think they're reorganizing their site and fixing more of it to be a little bit more clearing. So it's like you start with their compatibility, and then you find things that are on there that don't line up to the model numbers of the devices in front of me that are working. So it was confusing. And I mentioned that in my I have a TP-Link Omada video. I break down those details in there. But if some people could smash the like button, we got 69 likes and 263 concurrent viewers. So if you could smash that like button and bring that number up before we wind this down, because me and the wife are going to have dinner. That is the next plan. So in order to get me where I need to be and food in me, because I'm starving right now, I was saving eating because we have some really good food at home that I want to eat. So... oh, look at all those like buttons. Like buttons are smashed. Don't get me wrong. Giggity, 69 likes was not bad, but we definitely could use more than that. So, a few more like smashing things. Is there any final thoughts before I wind this down? I'll give it 2 more minutes. It'll be 5:40 my time when I stop. So I don't know what time you guys are seeing when you hear me say that, but right now, well, you should be hearing it and lined up with there, but I know there's like a slight delay in things here. I know you can manage them via the web interface, which is cool. Matter of fact, all the TP-Link Wi-Fi devices, I brought this up, all the ones I had tested in my TP-Link Omada video, each one of those devices listed also has a web interface, so you can configure them standalone, which I thought was cool. Oh, there'll be hot sauce involved because there's always hot sauce involved. I definitely will be eating hot sauce. So what else was I don't know. Follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much, because I don't know if he still hung out in the stream, but for those of you that didn't start here at the beginning, I will leave you with this so you can check it out in my forums. Someone's developing a WireGuard package with pfSense, and they are pulling it from Jason Donfield, the guy who wrote WireGuard. They're using the code base from that. This is outlined in my forums, but it's not available yet. But for those of you that want to poke at it and test it, check out my forums. And it says, I tweeted this out. Follow me on Twitter if you're looking for this. I'm developing a WireGuard package for pfSense. It's the post title you can find over in my forums if you'd like to dive into and read about this. Because yes, in 2.51, WireGuard has been removed from pfSense, but this person is working on making an add-on package to put it back in. So I brought that up at the beginning. I figure I'll leave you with it. I fully support this person, and I'm going to dive into it a little bit later, maybe interact with them. So I'm thinking that's pretty awesome that they're doing this, and I know the community will benefit from it because it's going to be a kernel implementation. So that being said, thank you all for joining, and really, please send me your email. We have a contact form on our website. I do not send people my email address. And people who are not on my contact list who think they can just email me just end up in the Bitbucket. So a lot of stuff gets ignored. We have a contact form, and when you follow that process, people respond to you. When you do not follow that process, you may not get responded to. Throwing it out there. Someone said, I get what you're saying, but I have one question for you. How do you manage the switches? Are they also easily adopted? And also the adoption process. Is there a way to automate it? Because there is in UniFi, it's really simple. You adopt them, they get sent the URL, or do you have to use their discovery utility each time? That's the part I was confused by. I didn't understand why it would have to use their discovery utility to set the inform URL versus the way UniFi does it. You define a controller with its inform URL, and then it's always working. So I adopt them locally and I ship them out of this building and they come back and call back to my controller every time. That was the problem I had with the UniFi system that I did not see a solution for with the TP-Link system. So maybe I'm wrong about it, and it could be I'm trying to learn it still, but that also points to another problem. I emailed TP-Link about this and I looked at their documentation. It is not at all well documented. So you haven't used the switches. So, okay, that's fine. I got how to do it on the other devices, but once again, it's a little clunky and not well documented. But I want to make a video on how to do it so I can explain to people how it's done so they can see the process difference. And I will be doing a side-by-side. So, yes, set the .UniFi address in DHCP server. That's another option too. There's a couple cool things you can do with UniFi. I don't see equivalent ways to do that with TP-Link is probably what I would matter. So did they make a smaller flying saucer? That's an issue I don't know how to address with the TP-Link. That thing is big. I'll leave you guys with that. All right, check out my TP-Link video if you want to know what I'm talking about, the big flying saucer thing. And thank you.